Well, good afternoon and welcome to COVID Questions from Kids, a special town hall with a tiny twist featuring Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry and BC Education Minister Rob Fleming. We just want to thank everyone for all the submissions over the past week. We've been inundated with great videos from all of your kids. We couldn't get to all of them, but we'll do our best today. And kids have a refreshing outlook on life, sometimes frank, sometimes frankly a little annoying. But this has been a joint effort between Breakfast Television, City News, and News 1130. Let's bring in News 1130 legislative reporter Lisa Yuzda. Lisa, you have two children, 4 and 8. This was your whole idea. You spearheaded this initiative because your own kids have questions about COVID.
They had a lot of questions. I'm a reporter. My husband's a reporter. So COVID-19 has been a topic of conversation in our home for months. You can't escape it. And I realized it was about 6 weeks ago, our 4-year-old was asking about when people were dying. Right. A heavy question. Our daughter was wondering about school, and their questions were different than the questions we were asking in press gallery when we got to talk to Dr. Henry and other ministers.
Of course.
And so I thought, you know, they have a different take on this, and it is definitely affecting them as well. So I thought, let's ask the people who have the answers, the experts, if they would talk to us. And remarkably, they said yes, because their plates are full. So we then put the call out for questions. And as you said, we've had many, many questions, video written in all kinds of ways. And we are so fortunate to have with us today the Provincial Health Officer, Dr. Bonnie Henry, and Education Minister Rob Fleming to answer the questions for us and for the kids. Thank you. Welcome.
You guys are keeping a nice, safe distance. That's good to see. I just want to say as well,
That's right.
This will not be a political grilling. So, Dr. Henry, you can kick off the flu vogs, put your feet up. And Minister Fleming, you can loosen the tie even a little bit more than usual, okay?
Great.
Okay. It's Saturday. You can all breathe a sigh of relief. Let's get to our first batch of questions. And this first one has been asked a lot.
Hello, my name is Alyssa, and I live in Penticton. My question is, where did the virus come from? And how long till I get to see my friends and go back to school?
Hi, I'm Takea. I'm 10 years old. I live in Vancouver, BC, and I'm a Girl Guide. And my question for Dr. Henry is, when will we be able to go back to school and do other activities like Girl Guides? Thank you.
So polite. Those are adorable. Let's go back to the first one, and Dr. Henry will direct that to you. Where did the virus come from?
Yeah, that's a very good question. We know that the first people who got sick with this virus were in China, and we know that coronaviruses, this is one in that family called coronaviruses, do circulate in a number of animals and also in bats. And it's very likely that way back when it probably was a virus in bats that went to another animal. And we still don't know for sure, but there's some theory that it's probably a pangolin. So we have to look that one up. It's a type of anteater that unfortunately is used as well for food and for some traditional Chinese medicines. And so there is a theory that an animal like a pangolin had this virus and it got into humans. But what we know now is that it's being passed between people. So it's a virus that changed enough so that it could pass between people, and that's how it spread around the world.
I know pangolins, if anyone's looking for information, because I've watched them with our kids, there's a Wild Kratts episode about pangolins. And I wanted to give a shout out to the Girl Guides. I have my Girl Guide reporter badge here, because they asked these questions and they partnered with us today. And so maybe we'll go to Rob Fleming, Minister Rob Fleming, and ask about what one of the Girl Guides was asking about, when they're going to get to go in any way kind of back to school like they're used to.
Yes. Well, first of all, I really want to thank all the grocery chains in British Columbia that helped the Girl Guides sell millions of boxes of cookies in our province, because it was not safe to do so in the traditional way, going door to door, and that's keeping the funding going for a really, really valuable organization for down the road when those kinds of outdoor and camping activities can be possible again. The answer around the schools, the short answer for all the kids and parents out there is when it's safe to do so. And we're looking at all the evidence around how British Columbians are doing combating the virus. we're in a really good position in British Columbia because everybody watching this program has been doing an awesome job together. When we say we're in it together, it means we all behave and act safely, and having done that now for many weeks and months in British Columbia, we're in a much better place than some other provinces and countries and other places of the world. But we have to keep that up. And I know that all of your teachers and the support staff in your schools really, really want to work with you again, want to see kids. And I know my own kids, you're dying to see your friends. And this isn't forever. This is just for now. Well, it's the best thing we can do to combat the coronavirus. And we'll have more to tell kids about what the return to school might look like and when it might happen in the coming days and weeks.
Okay, and with summer right around the corner, a lot of kids are asking about organized sports. So let's get to a couple other questions.
My name is Juliet. I am 9 years old and I live in Victoria. I'd like to know, when can we play organized sports again? I'm a gymnast and I like to get in the gym and see and practice with my squad again.
Hello, my name is Moon. I'm from North Vancouver and I'm just wondering when I can go back to Little League again this summer.
All right, who wants to take that one on?
I can start if you like.
Sure.
You know what? I think that those are great things, and it's so important for us to stay active and to have those activities that we do. I think we will be able to see some sports this summer, but it's not going to be the same this summer as what it has in the past. We still have to be really careful about this virus. So that means that we'll have distancing that'll be different. So you won't be able to do the gymnastics with your squad necessarily. But I do think there's lots of things that we will be able to do, and we'll have to do them a little bit differently. And that means staying apart from each other, not getting together and sharing water bottles and things like that, and not having our high fives and our hugs. So we'll be coming out with some ways of doing lots of great activities, particularly outdoor activities, which are really important in the summer, in the coming days. But I think there's some great things that we can do, particularly Little League. That's something that I think we can make some modifications. So it won't be exactly the same as last summer, but for this summer we'll be doing some different things, but we'll definitely be able to get people outside.
Okay, well, that's a nice optimistic note. Got to just adjust the squad goals a little bit. This next one is for Dr. Henry, a bit of a medical question about COVID-19.
Hi, Dr. Bonnie Henry. I was wondering how the COVID-19 germs spread on other people.
Great question.
Sure, and that is a great question, and that's what we've been watching a lot. So really, this is what we call a respiratory virus. So it means it infects our upper airways and our lungs, and we spread it to other people when we cough or sneeze or sometimes even speak or sing. We've had it being transmitted to people when they've been singing together in a choir, for example. But somebody has to be sick with it, and then the virus gets in those droplets that are in our nose and the back of our throat, and then when we cough, those droplets come out. And if somebody else breathes them in, they can get sick with the virus. Or sometimes the virus can land on the surfaces. So if we're coughing and we're in a place and then somebody else comes and touches it, you don't get sick by having virus on your hands. You get sick when you then touch your face and your mouth, and then the virus gets into your body that way. So that's why it's incredibly important to cover our cough if we're coughing ourselves, but also to wash our hands regularly, because the cleaning your hands is what protects you from getting that virus into your face and your mouth.
I realized that when a lot of us are talking to our kids about this virus, we call them bugs. And so we got a question from 5-year-old Caden in Prince George, who was asking, does the coronavirus have eyes?
No, but it does have these little spikes, these little horns. That's why we call it corona. So corona is the Latin word for a crown. So it has these little bumps on the surface, these proteins that allow it to stick to your cells, and those are what give it its name.
Just to lighten things up a little bit, you told us a little bit about your necklace. I wore my necklace today because my daughter made this for me, and you're known for your splashy, dashy necklaces. What did you say was the kids would know about your necklace today?
Oh, this is one that I got at the Jiggly Museum in Japan. It was actually a year ago today, and it seems like a completely different world when I was at that really cool anime museum in Japan.
Yeah, My Neighbor Totoro, Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. Those are staples in the Daikao household, by the way.
And just for the parents out there, because I know some things have changed when we're all at home with our children. I know that many of us are taking to having a glass of wine at night, and so many people are wondering, with having so much on your shoulders, how do you wind down? Is wine part of your routine, so the parents know?
Only in moderation, absolutely.
Okay.
You know what? I'm also a runner, so I recognize the importance of us all getting outside. And it's a way to keep our minds fresh and to keep us from. It helps with anxiety as well. So I really encourage people to do a little meditation too. Sometimes when we get really anxious and grumpy, or there's a whole lot of things going on, taking a deep breath and remembering to just, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's really important.
And a glass of Pinot on the couch while you're reading a book doesn't hurt either, right? I want to ask Minister Fleming about something, because we are both dads. And Rob, you deal with in your job one of the most important aspects of a child's life, their education. But what has this whole process been like for you personally as a father?
Well, I think like any parent, it's been something to adapt to. I mean, we look forward to getting up in the morning and taking our kids to school. It's a really important part of our community, our neighborhood, our kids' lives, and so we've had to create something, as other places around the world have had to do, around distance remote learning and using all kinds of video conferencing tools and working with teachers and support staff to try and keep some kind of continuity of learning going. Trying to make it fun for kids, letting kids know that the rules are a bit different now. And one of the messages that I've certainly been trying to give to parents is don't beat yourself up. Don't stress out that you have to suddenly become a teaching expert. Work with the teachers that are in your kids' lives and try and do some fun activities. I've heard of some really great examples. There's a family in Nanaimo that is all working together on a sort of a time capsule project. They're all recording, what their favorite color is, the names of their best friends, what it's like day to day. So, and my son is keeping a journal at home. That's part of his classroom assignment. And it's great to see so many teachers and education professionals rallying around kids and just reaching out sometimes to say, how are you doing? How's your family doing? To see support staff in schools delivering food to families that need those sorts of things. So, the school system right around every corner of the province has been doing an awesome job looking out for one another, helping each other. We're going to get through this together, and I think that's the message that we have to tell people. It's not the same right now, but it's not forever, and people are doing the best they can.
I'm glad you mentioned that. My daughter's school has been great. She's in kindergarten. They've sent all kinds of assignments home, but they've also said, do as little or as much as you can. It's up to you. Don't stress your kids out, and you need to manage everything else that's going on. Let's get to a couple more questions, and we did have some about if children would be in school in the summer and what that potentially could look like.
Hi, Dr. Henry. Hi, Minister Fleming. This is my school. It was built in 1907. Thank you for taking my question. I really miss my friends and my teachers. And I'm wondering, if we do go back to school, will there be school in July and August?
Hi, my name is Fran and I live in North Vancouver. I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I want to go back to school. My question is, when we go back to school, are there going to be rules on how we have to separate? Or what type of rules? Thanks.
Okay, some great questions there. Will we possibly see school in the summer? I know you can't answer all of these. And then what will the social distancing protocol look like?
Yeah, those are some of the things we're working on right now. There's a lot of school districts in Vancouver that offer summer school programming in normal times before we got into this pandemic. And they're looking at what they can offer this summer for students and families that are interested in that. It'll look different as well. The other thing that our government and governments around the world are grappling with right now is can we get kids back to school before the end of the school year? How can we do that safely? As the Premier said earlier this week, we're aiming for that. We know it will look different. It'll be, a strategy that involves kids at different ages. And I know kids really miss one another, and they get so much value out of being in school. And we're working with Dr. Bonnie Henry on getting the advice on how schools fit in with the rest of society. What's safe for all of us to do so that we continue to flatten the curve in BC and make sure that we're winning the fight against the COVID virus. So the school system really fits into that bigger picture.
And I certainly can talk a little bit about, it will look different, at least for now. And we won't be able to do those fun things like hugs and high fives and all of those things that are really important around socializing right now. But there will be some distancing, so we'll look at time distancing and space distancing, and there'll be hand cleaning, a lot more than we're used to. So those are the things that's part of my job, is to say, okay, how can we do it safely, and provide advice to the Ministry of Education so they can work with all of the school districts and the teachers to see how it fits in every community.
Dr. Henry, I just want to hit on that point because my mother was a nurse for years, and my wife is in the childcare industry and with community centers, and both of them for years have been really stressing the importance of washing our hands. So a lot of the things that we need to do right now, this has sort of been common knowledge for a lot of people in different industries that we just need to be reminded of right now more than ever.
Absolutely. I even wrote a book on it one time. But yeah, soap and water. It is, some of these basics are things that we sometimes forget are really, really important. So we know, as I mentioned, this is transmitted through droplets that we get in our face, and that we breathe in. So things like cleaning our hands regularly, really, really important. Cleaning those high-touch areas around the home, around the environment that we're in, covering our cough, and really, really important that we sometimes miss is staying home if we're feeling unwell ourselves, and that's going to be so important. So even if you have the sniffles, you should not be going to school. This is the excuse for, even if you're mildly ill right now, you stay home and stay away from others.
One question I know that child was asking is, does soap and water actually kill the virus, or does it just wash it off?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So, soap and water works by mechanical action. So the soap itself does keep microbes. So when we're out and about, we touch things. I have to say, we have bugs that live on our skin all the time, mostly bacteria, and they're part of our normal, what we call our normal flora, which is kind of a funny name when you think about it. But it's there are bacteria that live in and on our body all the time, and they help us. They help us digest food. They keep us safe in some ways. But then viruses are ones that we don't generally have on our body or in our skin or in our bodies, and they are ones that can make us sick, and there's some bacteria that can make us sick. So cleaning our hands with soap and water takes all of that off. And if your hands are dirty, so if you're outside and they're visibly dirty, then you really need to use soap and water. It works by mechanical action and gets rid of everything. If you don't have soap and water and you're not around an area and your hands aren't too dirty, then alcohol-based hand rubs, what they do is they actually kill viruses and microbes, those ones that we pick up that we don't need on our body all the time.
Okay, great. And I think two words really epitomize 2020, social distancing. It's a term that none of us really knew about before. We never had any reason to mention it. And kids have a, kind of a struggle at times dealing with that whole concept. So let's take a few more questions around that.
When can we hug our friends again?
Hi, Dr. Henry. My name is Claire, and I am 8 years old from Surrey, BC. My question for you is, why is it safe to be outside and talk to my friends from a distance, but I can't talk to them inside?
And before you answer that, Dr. Henry, I'm just going to add a little bit, because we got an email from a child who's also asking, with that distance going into the summer and having birthdays, can people sit at a distance on blankets and have a birthday party at a distance in a park?
Yeah, so the shorter answer is, when can you hug your friends again? Right now, you need to hug your brothers and sisters and your parents and the people that are in your house, in your pandemic bubble. And you need to hug them every day, because that's really important. We need to have that contact. When you can hug your friends again, probably small numbers of friends coming up soon, but you know what? We're going to have to keep that safe distance between us until we have a good way of protecting everybody from this vaccine. And that's the hard part. So yeah, we can do some things, particularly in the summer. In the next couple of weeks, we're still in that really critical period where we're bending our curve. But in the next couple of weeks, yeah, we'll be able to expand a little bit. But we'll need to keep that safe distance. So yeah, having a small number of people outside, so maybe just one or two of your friends that are not part of your pandemic bubble, that's okay. But you keep your distance, and you can celebrate by jumping up and down and waving to each other. You know, there's many things that we can do to keep connected socially, even if we're physically distant.
Yeah, just get creative. Okay, if you're not completely healthy all the time, and if you're a child who's immunocompromised, it can be really anxious for you as well. So let's take another question.
Hi, Dr. Henry. My name is Sophia. I am 7 years old, and I live in Vancouver. My question is, can kids get really sick from COVID or pass away? Thank you for all your hard work. Bye.
So cute.
Yeah, that's a really tough question. The good thing that we've noticed is around the world, for the most part, kids are not getting very sick. And as a matter of fact, sometimes they don't even have any symptoms at all. So that's great. Very rarely do they get very seriously ill, especially young kids. Having said that, infants, so under age 1, they can get very sick with this, and that's concerning. But most young kids, they get this and it's just fine. People who have immune-compromised systems, or if they're going through cancer or some of those other things, we need to protect them. All of us need to be really careful around them because they're the ones that can get sick. And we know as you get older, your chances of getting more sick with this go up. So older kids, teenagers, are more likely to have symptoms and to get quite sick as well. Most importantly, though, it's our elders and seniors in our lives, so our grandparents and people who are over 65. Those are the people that can more likely get really, really sick.
Okay,
so all of us have to do our bit to protect everybody.
Okay.
There's Michaela, who's 9 years old, who asks a similar question to this. She says her mother has had a transplant, so is immune compromised, and is worried that she's going to do something that will get her mother ill, or her mom is supposed to go back to work, and what happens with that?
You know, those are the really tough questions. Those are the people who we need to stay in our little bubble for a while longer until we have a good vaccine, because we don't want anybody to get sick around your mom. We don't want your mom to get sick because we know that that's risky. So for people like that, we need to be really careful, and we need to stay away from them, but we need to support them virtually. So those are the type of people where we want to make sure that we connect with you really regularly, but we do it either through our iPad or by talking on the phone or waving from a distance, because nobody wants anybody to get really sick with this.
Okay, and we've got one more question actually within that theme, so let's go to that one.
Hi, Minister Fleming and Dr. Bonnie Henry. My name is Ariana Mystery. I am immunocompromised. If schools reopen, is it safe for me to go back? If not, can I continue learning online with my teachers and friends?
So that might be a good one for Minister Fleming to weigh in as well. Like, if kids go back to school, and then if you have a child that's immunocompromised, can they still continue learning virtually at home?
Yeah, those are just the kinds of arrangements that are part of the careful planning about how we could reopen school services. So as Dr. Henry has just said, for somebody in a situation like that who is immunocompromised, won't be coming back to school as early as other kids, and need to be supported through the remote learning. So, you know, we don't want anyone to come, whether they have the sniffles or anybody with a pre-existing health condition that might make them vulnerable to the COVID virus, and the school system is there to accommodate kids who have you know, special conditions like that.
And now, taking a bit of a turn, we'll go back to Dr. Bonnie Henry. We have a few kids, Kenzie, Bella, and Bailey, who from the 2nd Gibson's Brownies are wanting to know what it's like to be the boss of all doctors. How do you handle it? Like, because you're in charge of all of us right now. Does it feel like the weight of the world's on your shoulders?
I kind of prefer Queen. But no, you know what? I'm the one that comes out and talks about it, but there's a whole lot of people that are working really hard on this, and we all work together. So even though I'm the one that is out here in front of the cameras, I take the advice from a lot of very wise people, and that's what makes it, makes it special when you're going through a crisis like this, having a group of people that you're working with and that you can make sure that everybody is taking care of each other, and that's what we all need to do. I talk about being kind. It's so important when we're going through a crisis, and it's hard for, everybody's experience is a little different. We all have our own things that we have to deal with. So supporting each other and remembering that we are all here in it together is really, really important.
I know that I've seen that your sister is a big part of your life, and you've become quite a role model for a lot. I got this T-shirt, and I know this isn't the only one. This is an artist in Calgary who did the T-shirt up of you. And what is it like to see, you are usually not in front of the camera. Your job is generally behind the camera, and one that we don't hear or see until there's something like this. I'm just wondering what it's like to know that you're a role model for, young women and girls, and to have the difference of being in front of the camera, giving these orders publicly versus the work you usually do behind the doors.
In obscurity, yeah. You know what? I have always been passionate about education for girls and how important it is for society that girls have every opportunity to do whatever they want in the world. And I have three sisters. There's 4 girls in my family, and our parents brought us up to be that way, to believe that we could do whatever we set our mind to, and that if we worked hard, we could get there. So part of me is really grateful that I have this opportunity to talk to young girls and to show that we can be smart and kind of nerdy sometimes, and we can still be good at what we do, and that's okay. So I'm really pleased to be a role model in that sense. It is a little strange for me to be on T-shirts and things like that, which is kind of surreal in some ways, but it's also very much an honor, and I'm very honored to be representing a whole lot of people that are working really hard on this crisis to try and keep us in BC and in Canada as safe as we can be.
And I think we can all agree the world needs more nerds, right?
Well, I have a little nerd who's 8 years old, and she's been watching Dr. Theresa Tam and she had a question.
Hi, my name is Bailey. I'm 8 years old and I'm from Victoria. My question is, my class is supposed to go on a field trip to Science World in May. Will that be postponed and we can do it next year, or was it a once-in-a-lifetime chance?
And just before you
there's nothing that's once in a lifetime.
No.
Well, and that's what we've got some grads that are asking that. This once in a lifetime. Our daughter was looking forward to this bus trip over to Science World so much, and so are all the grade 3s at Oaklands Elementary. But we have Jamie, who's in grade 12, who's graduating this year, and there's another grad who also wrote and said, this is once in a lifetime for them. So for you and for Minister Fleming, what can be done for those kids and for the grade 3s who are supposed to go to Science World for these once-in-a-lifetime experiences?
So I'll start. And you know what? Science World will be there. Maybe not this May, but certainly there'll be opportunities to go to Science World. For the grads this year, and I certainly feel that there's young people in my life. I have a teenage nephew who's in grade 12, and this is like a challenging time. Who knew that you would be going through these important transitions in your life where there's a global pandemic and the whole world has shifted and changed so rapidly? But we are doing things to make it special for people. You will be the only, the class of 2020 is the first one in over 100 years that has gone through something like this in this way, and that will be an experience that will stay with you for the rest of your life, and we need to support you to make it as special as it is every year for people.
And I just, for the class of 2020 out there, we're hearing lots of really cool ideas coming out of local schools. Principals and vice principals and others are getting really creative ideas, and they're using technology to properly celebrate your grad class. We're looking at something provincially too to acknowledge that, but we're in a difficult period of time, and everybody's working so hard to take care of the graduating class of 2020 to make sure that this pandemic, which is nobody's fault, doesn't disproportionately fall on that grad class, making sure that they get into college and university next year, helping everybody on track to graduate, make sure they graduate. And to Bailey and younger kids, those kind of field trip opportunities, they'll be back. They'll be enjoyable again. And in the meantime, just as we have to remotely learn, there's lots of institutions, Science World is one of them, museums all around the world that have really exciting virtual tours that are available. So that'll have to do for now, but we will get back to normal, and those kinds of field trips will always be part of school.
Okay.
Ryan Reynolds did something for Kids School the other day and got pizzas for all the kids. Are you going to replicate that? No pressure.
I thought that was so cool, and I'm sure there's going to be lots of people that are going to step up and celebrate. And he's obviously a very proud alumni of his high school, and that was really cool that he did that.
All right, let's take another question. This one is about keeping the elderly safe.
Hi, Dr. Henry. My name is Penelope. I'm 10 years old, and I live in Vancouver, BC. My question is, since I live with my grandmother, what are some things that I can do to keep her safe? Thank you.
Yeah, you know, it is the elderly people, I shouldn't say elder, the elders and seniors in our lives who are most concerning, people who get more likely to get really sick with this disease. So the things that we can do are keeping our bubble together, making sure that we're not having a whole lot of, that we need to make a little bit more sacrifice to protect them. So if you're spending time with your grandmother, you need to maybe not have those play dates right now, not having those connections with your friends, keeping that safe distance and keeping those connections virtually, making sure that you are staying connected, but not doing it in the physical way. The physical distance is really important to protect our elders. The other thing, of course, is going back to all that usual stuff of cleaning your hands regularly and making sure that you're staying well yourself, and if you're feeling sick, to stay away from your grandparents for a little while.
Okay. Dr. Henry and Minister Fleming, I know you're pressed for time. It is Saturday. We have a couple of questions. Do you have time? Can we persuade you to stick around for a few more minutes?
Sure.
Twist your rubber arm there. Okay, let's take another question. And Dr. Henry, you touched on this a little bit when it comes to animals.
Hello, Dr. Henry, and my question is, do animals get the virus and which ones? Thank you and goodbye.
Sure, that's a really exciting one. We've been watching this around the world, and so now that it's transmitted from human to human, the question is, you know, can we give it to animals? Do we have to worry about our pets? So the bottom line is, we know that cats can get it, including there was tigers and lions in the Bronx Zoo that tested positive, which is really fun because the tiger got sick and they had to put it to sleep to do the nasal swab, and they were thinking that the other tigers might be sick too, and the lions, and how are they going to test them? As you can imagine, it's not easy to take a nasal swab on a lion. But then they figured out that they could actually test the stool from the lion, and that the virus was shed in the stool. So we do know that there's 8 tigers and lions in the Bronx Zoo who've tested positive, and we know that house cats can get it, and they get mildly ill with it. There's been a couple of dogs. There's also been mink from a mink farm in the Netherlands that have become sick with it, and hamsters. The animals that don't seem to be affected by it are birds. So ducks and geese have been tested, and they don't seem to get sick with it, nor do pigs. So these are all the things that we're learning about this virus. What we do know, though, is that it's mostly the animals get it from us. So when we are sick, we can pass it on to our pet dog or our pet cat. Dogs less so than cats. We don't seem to get it back from them. So it's us making animals sick as opposed to the animals making us sick afterwards. So if you are sick and you have pets, it's best to stay away from them. And of course, if you have pet dogs or pet cats or hamsters or anything else in your house, making sure that you wash your hands after you have contact with them, and you don't share food and don't kiss them and lick them. I know it's hard, and sharing toys, because there are other bugs that animals can carry that can make us both sick too.
Dr. Henry, you kind of light up when we talk about animals. Are you into biology as well?
Well, I just think this is a really interesting virus, and we're learning so much about it. And so, all of these things that we've thought about over time, like, okay, what about my cat? What about my dog? What about the modeling stuff that we've been doing? How do we know it's transferred this way or that way? Those are all the things that I find really interesting in the work that I do as an epidemiologist.
And we have a 7-year-old, Sebastian from Victoria, who's similar, sort of on that line. He's talking about going out for walks with his family. You're suggesting people get out and get their stress out. He likes climbing, he says, on boulders and trees. He wants to know if the virus, there's a picture of Sebastian on a tree up there, he wants to know if the virus sticks to natural things like trees, or is this just his mom telling him these things so he doesn't climb into dangerous spots?
Yeah, so we know the virus is spread in droplets, and it doesn't live very long outside the body. So we know that in the laboratory it can last for several hours on some things like tables or things like that. Outside, it dries up very quickly and it dies very quickly, particularly if there's sunlight. So you're much less risky outside, and it really is not from touching natural things that you're most at risk from this, as long as you clean your hands all the time.
And one more that's just come in from Annika, I hope I'm saying her name right, 13, who's in Penticton. And I don't know if you can answer this. It's a few months away, and we know every week feels like a year right now. She says her dad lives in Florida, and she travels there to see him. And she's wondering, is there a chance that she's going to get to see him this summer? Is she going to be able to fly to Florida to see her dad?
Yeah, you know what? Some of these things are just outside of our control right now. We know that there's still a lot of this disease circulating in the United States, in Florida, and we know that there's not a lot of flights going back and forth. So we know also how important it is to maintain our family connections and to be able to see our parents and our cousins and our relatives. So I don't have a good answer, except that it's probably going to be some time before we're able to go back and forth very easily, partly because there's things still changing around the world.
Okay, we have time for 2 more questions, and this next one comes to us from the northern end of Howe Sound.
Hi, Dr. Henry. My name is Lucille, and I am 11 years old. My name is Stevie, and I am 9 years old. We live on Anvil Island, and our caretaker kids at Daybreak Point Bible there. We love camping. We are wondering if summer camps will be allowed to run this summer. You know that there are lots of...
All right, question about summer camps there.
Summer camps. You know what? We've been thinking about summer camps. We've been thinking about how could summer camps run effectively with the parameters that we keep talking about, which is social distance or physical distancing. We're calling it physical, safe distance, making sure that we have safe distances, we can clean our hands regularly, and we don't have a whole bunch of people coming together. So probably not overnight camping, but I believe there's some ways that we can do day camps that will be quite fun for people.
Okay, we have to wrap it up for time, but we just want to get a little message from both of you. So, Minister Fleming, what do you want to leave the families that have been listening and watching today? What's your message to help get them through this, and anything else you want to add to the discussion?
Sure. I think for the parents out there, if you're concerned that the bedtime is extended and the mornings are a little different during this unprecedented time, don't concern yourself. You are not alone. And look, we have kids who are learning all kinds of things from you. Think how many potential bakers and gardeners we've created. And teachers out there are so dedicated to making sure that any kids or parents who are worried about, catching up down the road, that this is their #1 priority. We're going to get back to school down the road, hopefully sooner rather than later. And that's what everyone's going to work on together. And so to the kids too, I say, keep doing what you're doing. I notice my own kids, they seem to be getting along better under this pandemic than under normal times. I probably shouldn't say that because that might change now. But you know, as Dr. Henry has reminded British Columbians time and time again, be kind to one another, be compassionate, and we're in this together and we're going to get through it. And I think everybody in British Columbia understands that and knows those words, and we're practicing it, and it's helping all of us get through this together.
And to Dr. Henry, I know I keep your words in my head and my heart when you're saying, you know, when people want to judge other people for what they're doing, to remember that you don't know someone else's circumstances. And I wonder if you can talk to the kids. We know you have a famous saying that maybe you'll say that everybody says now. If you could give some words to these kids as they are dealing with this most unusual time when they're trying to just be kids.
Yeah. You know what? This is a really challenging time, and I know a lot of people are anxious. They're not sure what is going to happen next, and you know what? We don't have all the answers either, but we do know that the things that we're doing are helping, and that we can get through this, and that it's going to be a really challenging experience for all of us, but some positive stuff is going to come out of it, and we have to remind ourselves every day that there's still beauty out there, and there's music, and there's art, and there's love. And we have to continue to just be kind and be calm and be safe.
Thank you so much for your time.
Our sincere thanks to Dr. Henry and Minister Fleming for shedding some light and taking some questions from kids about COVID. You have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. You too.
All right, Provincial Health Officer Dr. Bonnie Henry and BC Education Minister Rob Fleming taking some great questions from kids. I mean, such insightful stuff we were getting. I mean, this was like the tip of the iceberg when it came to all of the questions we had flooding in. The response was overwhelming.
And they run the gamut, and I love that we went from 4-year-olds to 18-year-olds wondering about graduating, and we know that there are still a lot more questions. And I know that Breakfast Television and City News are going to try and answer some of those questions in the weeks to come. And on News 1130, our news director, Charmaine De Silva, is going to do some Facebook Lives, answering some questions that parents might have and kids might have as well, some other legal questions and things that are coming up in this most unusual time.
By the way, I have to say, your daughter Bailey, she's intense. Right?
She is intense. She laughs hard, she plays hard, and she thinks hard. She wants to be a civil rights activist.
Yeah. She reminds me of my little Deja. Also, yes, we didn't have time to get to every question, and we really appreciate all of them. Tuesday on Breakfast Television, we will try to answer some of the questions that we didn't get to when family physician Dr. Yvette Liu joins us in her normal segment. So we're going to try to work some of those in, and we'll try to find some that maybe we didn't quite have time for today that, you know, look at different areas of COVID-19. But kids are anxious, and it's up to us to make sure they feel safe and secure. And I think Dr. Henry and Minister Fleming really helped do that today.
And thanks to the kids. I mean, obviously, and their parents, they put a lot of time and effort into thinking about these questions and asking these questions. And I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there who appreciated hearing the answers and knowing they're not alone.
Totally. Yeah, we're all in it together. So on behalf of City News, News 1130, and Breakfast Television, we want to thank all of our listeners and all of our viewers. And thanks to you, Lisa, for joining me on a Saturday.
Thank you, Thor. Thanks, guys.
All right. Have a great rest of the weekend, and thanks for tuning in.